Hello, gang. Professor McElroy here. We are in week 4, learning module 4 of digital illustration class. This week is an open lab week, but I always like to start off week 4, recapping a little bit our first 3 weeks, the outcomes we've met in the course, what we've learned, and a little brief overview of the post-course assessment or final project. We've spent the first 3 weeks learning, in essence, how to draw in Adobe Illustrator. We learned all about the pencil and paintbrush tool. We learned about the pen tool. We learned about Bezier curves. We learned about the best ways to smooth and draw. And we tried more of a painting style. We tried a more modern interpretation, clean shapes. We followed along in your vector drawing book and did a bunch of mini projects practicing everything from little basic thumbnail concepts all the way through to some finished digital illustrations. And your book does a really good job of giving you playful assignments and also real world application. And we also talked a little bit about typography and talked about what this application of digital illustration looks like. What is this scalable final vector graphic that we're creating? What is this thing? We talked about layer management, how we have a drawing layer or a black line drawing. We have a filler, a color layer. We have a template layer or something that we're kind of using as a guide as the bottom layer. And we spent some time talking about background, middle ground, and foreground, and kind of the process of making sure that we cover all 3 planes of space, even though we're drawing in a 2-dimensional environment. So we talked a lot about building that depth. We took a look at both raster-based effects and vector-based effects in Adobe Illustrator, right? The vector-based effects being things like arching and warping, and more of the raster-based effects like shadows and glows and blurs and things like that. And we talked about the importance of building these elements in Illustrator so that they are scalable vector graphics, which you might have seen SVG out on the web before for images, right? These are objects that you draw in Illustrator so that you can scale them up to the size of a billboard if you need to, or shrink it down to the size of a stamp, and the clarity will still be there as you kind of create this illustration for any number of applications, right? People think of it as drawing, doodling, but there are some photorealistic qualities to a program like Adobe Illustrator as well. So there's no better way in your final project for your post-course assessment for this class to do what is like currently a hip hot topic in digital illustration world, and that's craft labels, craft beer labels. Breweries are extremely popular. There's 3, 4, 5 popping up in every town. It feels like every week, and it's a really great kind of client opportunity for those that like to draw digitally. And each one has its own style. Each one has its line of beverages. Each one has small batch things that they're producing and kind of selling and packaging for a short period of time. So they really need digital illustrators because they're constantly creating new products. They're doing short runs, but they want to be unique. And I don't know, you probably may have noticed, maybe not noticed, but everyone has its own unique style. So like Ceremony Brewing is different than Hops Brewing, which is different than Palm City Brewing, which is different than Fort Myers Brewery. Everyone kind of has their own style with how they both generate kind of the taste of what they're creating and also the packaging for what they're selling. So this is a really great environment to be introduced to if you like to digitally illustrate, because in essence, you're creating a story behind every name, every beverage, every taste that they're producing. And as Hodges students for digital illustration class, We've had the opportunity to do murals and label designs and t-shirt designs and all kinds of things for the craft beer industry. So we're going to be doing Palm City. I happen to know Ryan, the owner of Palm City, because he was a teacher in Collier County, and my wife is in administration in Collier County. So we've kind of seen him evolve from brewing beverages in his garage to now a storefront that sells to restaurants and cans and creates. But the beautiful thing about Ryan is he supports local, and he also really loves art. And so there's always things hanging in the tasting room from different people. And so I'm hoping that what we produce as our post-course assessment, I'll be able to show him, and maybe, just maybe, he may be willing to print and produce some kind of interior signage or artwork that'll hang kind of in the tasting room. The beauty about Palm City is that they are producing new things. There's like 130 recipes and growing. So they're producing new things like every single week, it feels like there's a new release. So the sky is the limit for what names he's using, what beverage types he's using, and what labels he's producing. So who knows, this might end up being a really nice portfolio opportunity for one of you that he may use over and over again if he likes your illustration style and he likes what you produce. So our final project is to do 3 illustrations, 3 separate illustrations for 3 beverage names that he's currently producing that are on his website at palmcitybrewing.com. So your announcement section has a couple of interesting things I posted out there to hopefully inspire you and kind of get you going as it relates to your post-course assessment. Now, your first announcement, I posted a couple of samples just to give you inspiration about what these spot illustrations typically look like when you're producing something for a small batch brewery. And you'll notice Smog City has their coffee porter, their American Amber Ale, and their, I think this might be, yep, it's an IPA. And you'll see that the illustrator has a very unique style, but the labels are all produced with the same scale and proportion. The name of the brewery at the top, the illustration that reflects the type of or name of drink, and kind of the same color palette, kind of treatment or effects, and location and scale of elements. So the coffee porter looks like this robotic coffee machine, right? With the kind of smoke coming out. The Squirrel American Amber is this little illustration here, very muted, very kind of free in its illustration style, mimicking this first label, name below, illustration in the middle, brewery name above, and you can see the last one here for the IPA. But you could tell that these 3 spot illustrations are all from the same artist, and that this is a series of labels, so that the brewery name is the same scale, production scale, color palette, location, proportion, all that good stuff, the exact same location. The illustration takes up about the same surface area on all 3, and the names have their own unique typography, but they take up about the same proportion, scale, location at the bottom of the label. This is what we're producing for our final project, are these 3 illustrations with 3 beverage names below them, making them feel like they were all created by you, but also have their own unique story based on the name of inspiration of the beverage that you are producing. And I gave the name up here, Unicorn Tears, which is one of the drinks. What does that look like for you? How would you illustrate that with the name below it? What would the color palette look like? What would the style of illustration look like? You know, what would it be? So let's take a look at the second. You obviously can see that these 3 labels have the exact same illustrator, very modern, very graphic, very bold, all 3 different names, all similar style, all different illustrations. And as we scroll down to the bottom, you will see once again, brewery logo at the top, illustration in the middle, name of beverage below. This illustrator actually kept the exact same typography for all three illustrations, the, with the name of the beverage in the middle and the type of beverage below in all caps, but the same scale, same proportion, same font, same everything. So the idea is that when you look at this series of illustrations, you get the vibe that it's from the same illustrator, that it is from a series. And I'll have you know that a brewery, when they have a style and an illustrator they like, they produce every single label for every batch of every 100 plus brews that they produce in the brewery. They're trying to develop a unique style and replicate that style over and over and over again. So that's a really good kind of inspiration series to kind of get you started brainstorming what your post-course assignment might look like. And if you go out on YouTube and you type in craft beer label design, you're going to get a ton of these animation shorts showing different illustrators creating spot illustrations specifically for their client. And it's a really cool way to get inspired. And they did a digital mock-up in Photoshop to show what it would look like. But my goodness, there are so many videos and so many shorts in YouTube that if you want to go out there for inspiration, there are tons and tons of samples out there. Keeping in mind that this is all about your style, your uniqueness, your illustration, your kind of series of drawings, right? We're trying to create a portfolio that is full of spot illustrations that showcase how you draw digitally. And everyone will produce a different solution, even if I gave you the exact 3 names to illustrate. Everyone will have a different idea for city lights. Everyone will have a different idea for these different drink names that become unique to them based on their experience, based on their wordplay of what they're asked to replicate. And oftentimes the owners will give you somewhat a free rein based on what you think that kind of name says, or that illustration, that story is for you. So what is unique to you and what is your unique style? And it's always fun at the end to see exactly what each student produces, what each illustrator produces as it relates to a series of names or a series of titles. And so it's really good to brainstorm, right? If you're going to do city lights, write down the term city lights and jot down all the words that come out, you think of when you think of city lights. Maybe you think of Fort Myers, maybe you think of nighttime, maybe you think of car headlights, maybe you think about neon lights on the street. There are so many things with city lights you could think of. Maybe you think of a silhouette with the moon and the stars and kind of a burst of light behind the cityscape. Everyone will think of and see things a little bit differently as it relates to a phrase or a term. That's the beauty about graphic design. Everyone is unique. Everyone problem solves differently. Everyone has their own mind's eye, their own unique eye for how they see things when they are trying to create a unique solution for something, right? We spend a lot of time the first few weeks following along and drawing and learning how to draw based on subject matter I give you and a particular style we are rendering. But now we've spent 3 weeks, 24 to 30 hours roughly drawing digitally, practicing the different digital drawing tools, some of you navigating in Procreate, testing that waters, some of you crossing between programs, some of you just getting your feet under you in Adobe Illustrator and practicing that drawing technique. Some of you will draw towards realism. Some of you will draw towards cartoon-ish. Some of you will draw towards kind of a more modern, simple, clean line interpretation of objects. Everyone kind of does things a little bit differently. So I really can't wait to see what you create based on the project at hand. So I went ahead and opened up Palm City's list just to see, what might inspire you as far as 3 names that you might come to some kind of idea of what that illustration might look like. Maybe it's flow, maybe it's city lights, maybe it's a primate party, maybe it is ocean view, blank check, maybe it's Daysify. Maybe it's space taxi. Gosh, that's an interesting one visually, isn't it? Space taxi, you're thinking about flying cars, you're thinking about the Jetson ages, maybe. Maybe you're thinking about Uber. I don't know. Maybe you're thinking about just electric cars and what that's going to look like in 2030, 2040, 2050. This is such an interesting name. What about Juice Dream Hero? Like, what does that look like for you? Main character moment. Like, what is that? What does that look like? Recycled unicorn tears. Gosh, I've gotten a lot of different types of illustrations. Just about everyone tries to tackle that when I give it as a project, at seeing what they do with it, from waterfalls and rivers to rainbows and all kinds of stuff. So it's really interesting. Passion on Pluto, Red Tiger Dreams, Vienna Sky. What's a visionary to you? 1001 Nights. This is G.B. Porter. To me, G.B. Porter is something dark and peanut butter-ish in nature. So there's so many interesting names of what's currently on tap. Passion on Pluto is so interesting to me. I'm thinking UFO. I'm thinking about a purple planet. I'm thinking about maybe a fun, playful Martian of some kind, maybe a Martian holding up a drink of some kind, and the drink maybe is pink or purple, or maybe it's smoking. I don't know. There's so many interesting visuals that could be created based on what is currently happening now at Palm City Brewing. So it is your project to tackle 3 names, 3 illustrations, 3 artboards in Illustrator based on a story to be told, what we would call a spot illustration for each one of those drinks. So I'm going to go ahead and close out the Palm City Brewing site. I'm going to quickly go into Illustrator, because if it was me, the very first thing I would do in Illustrator would be I would go in and set up a new document. I like to do, especially when you're doing labels and it's an illustration in a label, to do like a square canvas. So I'm going to do 6 by 6 and create. And it's going to create a square artboard for me. So I'm going to start with that. And this is going to be kind of my template that I'm going to kind of create my 3 things from. And you can go through a couple of different styles as it relates to that. You could write it all in the same font like the one brewery did, or you could choose a different typeface, put it in the same scale and proportion as the label from the announcement. So I don't know, what if we were doing city lights, right? City lights. And I'm going to scale this up. I'm going to drop it in the middle. I'm going to choose kind of like a script. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. And for the sake of the process, actually, let me go back in. And I'm going to templatize really quickly. So it's an American lager. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to go in now. And remember, 2 typefaces. It's kind of the rule of thumb. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to drop this in here just to give you an idea. I'm just kind of placing my elements in here. I'm going to align them, make sure they're aligned. And then underneath it, let's go here. And this is, you have to have, I'm going to do this, copy this. And I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to use this. And I'm going to use this as the, so I'm going to center a line. I'm going to take this, center align this, go back to the middle, highlight that. And it's traditionally small. So I'm just going to block in the information. So it's da, 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 point, point. Well, let's do this. I'm just doing a vertical line to separate the information. And maybe I'll make this bigger, just so it separates it. Copy that, paste that, paste that. And I'm just blocking it in so you can see my problem solving process. So like this is the beginning. And so I'm going to make a copy of this. And I'm just going to write top. I'm going to make this. I'm going to make it small. And I'm going to space it out. It's just to give it a little gist, right? I'm going to select this. I'm going to find center, which is right there. And actually, I'm going to slide this up a little bit. There we go, right about there. So here is my template, just for the sake of the process, so you can kind of see how I work. I'm just going to do a simple little circle as like a space holder. All right, so if I was creating my illustration, this would be my template for my first label, knowing that I have to do my spot illustration. I got to apply colors. I got to do what I'm going to do to create this illustration, but I'm going to go in there and create that. I'm going to name this City Lights. Then I'm going to duplicate it over here. And I'm going to name this one Space Taxi. So let's do Space Taxi. Make sure that this is center aligned. And Space Taxi is a pale ale. And it's 4.5. So there's number 2. And maybe just for the sake of the process, and I'm doing this just so you can see like my thought process when I create things. So let's get rid of it. Get rid of that. And then my artboard. And this is Space Taxi. And then I'm going to duplicate that. And last but not least, Passion on Pluto. I love the name of that. Passion on Pluto. Shrink this down a little bit like that. Going to align that. It is a sour fruited drink. And let's see, it is 4%. And just for the sake of the process, just so you can see how I kind of problem solve my layout, delete that. And so I'm just going to zoom out for a minute now so you can see that I've laid in the template. So I can go ahead and close this. I laid in my template for my 3 illustrations for my final project. I did just simple shapes as space holders to give me a basic idea of kind of this location of the elements that I'm going to put in here in my spot illustration. And now I could start kind of brainstorming, drawing. Sometimes I will take, let's go into my artboards and just so you can see. So this is Passion on Pluto. So there is my 3rd one. So I'm going to duplicate this just so that you can see. So sometimes when I'm working with a client, I will do this. And down here is where I'm going to draw. So I'm going to get rid of that. And this is my drawing or illustration board. So I'm going to name it City Lights _illustrate. Then I'm going to duplicate that. And zoom out. Find that. Move this down. This is my Space Taxi _illustrate. And then I'm going to duplicate this. Let me zoom out. And I'm going to do Passion P illustrate. And now, let me just zoom out. I have the beginning of my labels very consistently scaled and proportioned, kind of like the 2nd sample or 3rd sample in our announcement. I've got the names of the 3 illustrations I'm going to do, which now I have a good structured template. I have kind of the basic names, and now I have an artboard just to illustrate. So I don't get all confused in here with what's going on in this little shape. I can illustrate down here. It's separate from the label, and I can move it up and park it right in the place that I need. I also have the same artboard size to make sure that my illustrations are square in essence, so that they'll fit in this space really well, because this is a square. So I'll be able to kind of put my thing in there, my illustration based on, you know, what I want to narrate, what I want to illustrate in a square environment. So remember, down here now is where I could place some images I want to trace, draw over, illustrate, paint, and I can build my illustrations down here, build my style, build my color palette, and then move them up here. You'll be giving me this document as a PDF for your final submission. Remember, save as. Photo Illustrator PDF, and it'll be my last name _final. And this PDF will be what you'll be giving me. That way I can preview it in Canvas, and I also have access to the vector elements just in case. Ryan loves anything we do and he wants to blow it up to 8 feet by 8 feet and put it in the tasting room somewhere or in the brew station area, but we have access to the scalable vector element. So here is our 30-minute kind of introduction to our post-course project. Hopefully this inspires you a bit and kind of gets you going in the right direction. Remember, this does not have to be the same font if you do not want it to be. Remember, some of the samples that I showed have different fonts, different textual treatments for each of the 3 spot illustrations, and some have exactly the same. So it's up to you as to what the style is you're going to develop, but we should be able to see that the same artist created all 3 of these spot illustrations. So I can't wait to see what you come up. Remember, Sunday night at midnight is the end of our session. You can turn in any and all outstanding work for full point consideration as the week evolves. If there is anything that comes to mind, any questions you might have, anything you would like to share with me as a preview so I can see if you're going down the right road, please remember you can email me, you can submit that by PDF to me, and I'll critique it, give you some direction, give you some guidance as you work on your final project. And I can't wait to see what you come up with. And obviously, I will keep you in the loop as we complete our final projects. If I share them, if we produce some really cool things and I share them with Ryan, and he might be inspired to print any of those, you'll be part of the process, whether you say, yes, I would love for him to do that, or no, it's kind of my stuff and I don't really want to, but it is a great portfolio opportunity. So please take some time, energy, and effort to really create some amazing final post-course projects. Everyone have a great week. Remember, next week we hit the ground running with our March session. I look forward to having each and every one of you in class as we continue to learn our digital design and graphic software and tools. Great job so far, everyone.